Hello, everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in to Dr. Judy WTF. And tonight's episode is titled Unhooking from Narcissistic Abuse and Owning Your Own Stuff. So easier said than done. I know that a lot of the people that I've treated suffer from narcissistic abuse and continue to sign up for abusive relationships, even after they have managed somehow to get out of the clutches of narcissist one or have been dumped by narcissist one. Somehow they end up under the influence of a new narcissist, sometimes the covert or sometimes the overt or any sort of a manipulative and blood-sucking creature that narcissists are. So how do we unhook from narcissistic abuse? So, okay, I'm gonna give you an analogy. In order to have a water molecule, okay, water is, as you know, H2 and O. So if you're gonna continue to be the O to the H2, then you're going to keep hooking up with the H2 and creating water. Now, that happens to be a great combination, very healthy, can't live without it. However, if we're talking about two pieces of a puzzle, right? Two molecules attracting each other, then you've got to be the counterpiece to the narcissist. So, what's the counterpiece to the narcissist? Most of you already know this because you've lived it. Counterpiece to a narcissist is somebody who will do something that I talk quite a bit about called positive projection. And positive projection means simply giving credit to people where they haven't earned a damn bit of it. Okay, so if you keep crediting the narcissist with all kinds of positive qualities just because they showed you a morsel of love or kindness or anything positive, then you're sort of doing the 80-20 rule or the 10-90 rule or even the 99 1% rule, which is that you will give up 99% of yourself for that 1% pleasure. So in order for you to unhook from narcissistic abuse, you have to stop being the counterpiece to the narcissist. You have to stop being the oxygen to their hydrogen. So now that I'm putting it that way, hydrogen also has a tendency to be a hydrogen bomb, correct? So if you keep giving oxygen, meaning supply, to a bomb, the bomb is going to go off, and oftentimes it'll go off on you. So how do you unhook from this is you have to really heal yourself so that you don't become the counterpiece or the counterpart to the person who you merged with in a not so copacetic way. So let's go through the panels and let's mind map this thing so you completely understand who you are in this puzzle. So the other part of this episode I call is own your own stuff. So your own stuff is the one that's going to unhook you from the narcissist. So let's see. Sorry, I hate when I have to sneeze and it doesn't come out, but happens. Okay, so what is your own stuff? So if you look at panel one, you will see your light, which is all the wonderful qualities that you possess. Perhaps you're a loving, kind, generous, intelligent, successful, just a great person all around. But yet, you have childhood wounds that prevent you from seeing who you are. So perhaps these childhood wounds include neglect and abuse in some form. And the main abuses and neglects that I talk about are physical abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, control smothering, narcissistic abuse, which is abuse by parents who put their own needs before you. So if you come from any parts of this dark past, then you're not going to be free to live your own life completely, because you're going to do what I call the WTF, or the what the Freud. So you're going to end up recapitulating what went on in your childhood. And oftentimes you will recapitulate this with the narcissist who you were hoping you would never encounter again in your life, but lo and behold, you do, because this is your norm. This is home to you. This is what feels normal and natural and comfortable, even though it's uncomfortable it's in its own right. So if you haven't already gotten the book, Be the Cause Healing Human Disconnect, I really do advise you to go to Amazon.com and purchase it. It's there. If you really want a PDF version, you can have one by asking. It's always nice to have the book version, because then you can read it slowly and underline things and go back through the chapters easily. And it's just a nice thing to have in your hands. And so, in order for you to not be the companion piece to the narcissistic vampiring effect, you have to heal your childhood wounds, and you have to own your own stuff, meaning you have to reflect back on what was it that you were doing and who is it that you were being in order to be embroiled in such a relationship in the first place. And this is a call-in show, everybody. So please feel free to call in. That number is 323-524-2599. So unhooking means being a different person, in a sense, coming from another consciousness, because the consciousness behind being in a narcissistic relationship is, I'll name some of them: the consciousness of denial, the consciousness of people pleasing, the consciousness of this positive projection that I just talked about. So that there are many different levels that you yourself have participated in order to continue to be in this type of relationship that absolutely doesn't serve you, except that it makes you feel on some level like you are comfortably in a similar environment to your home environment. But over time, no matter whether it feels like home or not, it really, really does begin to poison you. And when that happens, you will absolutely feel it in every fiber of your being. Research has shown that people who are in toxic relationships, which a narcissistic relationship is a toxic relationship because it's based on a toxic bond, kind of like an addiction. You're bonded to the person because you are needing that person. You're needing the person the same way the person is needing you. They need you for the supply, and you need them for the molecules of love that they provide you. That's your supply, but of course, nothing absolutely short of enough. Okay, it's like not enough at all, but enough to keep you nice and starving for more and aching for more and putting you in a kind of like a position of pining for love. So as long as you're locked in that system, in that place of being accepting of that level of love, you will be locked in this toxic bond. And if you haven't already seen it, please note that I have done a video called Healing from Narcissistic Abuse, and that is something that you can purchase through the website. There it is, Healing from Narcissistic Abuse. And please feel free to check out the introduction. The introduction you can see on my website, and you can download it and watch it for free and get a feeling for what it's all about, so that you can see if this is some kind of a journey that you would want to take to basically unhook yourself from narcissistic abuse. So let's backtrack a little bit. What is narcissistic abuse? Narcissistic abuse is, it starts in the family, and it starts when the parents lack empathy. They do not know how to mirror and attune, and they do not know how to really connect to their children. And I think we have a question in the chat room. Yeah, go ahead.
Actually, we have two, but we'll start with this one. I've
Okay.
been out of a relationship with a narcissist for over a year, but I'm still feel hooked emotionally. What are some first steps to truly unhook and regain my sense of self?
Okay, great question. So time will not do the trick necessarily. Okay, you've been out of the relationship for 1 year, but what have you done internally to own your own stuff? So what's owning your own stuff? Owning your own stuff might sound something like, geez, I've been a really needy person. Wow, I've been willing to settle for less than what what a human being needs. Oh my God, I am just so addicted to this person that I keep mistaking addiction for love. Oh my gosh, I broke all my boundaries in order um, to be with this person, and I got nothing out of it. My goodness, I reinforced all of these behaviors in the person by lending him or her money, or by taking down my sexual boundaries before there was a commitment, or by sharing all of my ideas with the person who then took off and capitalized on them without paying me or giving me credit for it. Okay, so all of these things necessitate for you to just stop wanting that person back. Yeah, I know there's a craving. Yeah, I love all kinds of things that I can't have right now because I have to eat really, really healthy. But that doesn't mean that I don't love them. But then again, do I want to pay the price? Do I want to pay the price in um, my body being unbalanced? Do I want to pay a health price for something that presumably I love? Well, over time, I learned not to love it so much because it's not a good love. It's not a generative love. So these are the ways that you have to own your own stuff. And trust me, time is not going to do this. So if you're still thinking about the person in the context of, wow, what did I do wrong? How did I lose the person? What did I say? Could I have been more? And yeah, he or she is right. Maybe I'm not as attractive as I used to be. Yeah, sure. I got older. I gained weight. Okay, so people who are people pleasers tend to focus on themselves as the fault. Okay, it's all my fault. He or she left me because, and then there's going to be a long list of why. I'm too fat, I'm too old, I'm too ugly, I'm too stupid, I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable. List goes on. Okay. So if you're still doing that, then they got you because they got you to deflect from their behavior and turn the blame upon yourself, which is a perfect way for them to free themselves from any self responsibility. Do you notice that narcissists have a very hard, if not impossible, time apologizing? You will not hear from a narcissist anything like owning their own stuff. Like, oh my God, I could see how that really hurt your feelings. I could see how that was really unethical of me. I could see how that was out of line for me to treat you like that. No, that doesn't exist because, from a narcissistic point of view, they equate self responsibility with self blame. And because of their childhood wound, which is probably that they were raised by narcissistic parents who were controlling them and blaming them and shaming them, they got confused about self reflection and blame. So self-reflection to them equals blame, all right? But if you're a people pleaser, you have a chance of self-reflection is not blaming yourself, but simply taking the responsibility, okay? So in order for this formula, the narcissist and the codependent or the people pleaser or whoever you happen to be being right now or over the years in the relationship, something has to shift and they're not going to shift. So the only thing is for you to do the shifting, which means that you've got to turn yourself into another molecule, not a people-pleasing molecule, not a codependent molecule, not a denying molecule, not a person who's going to absorb all their faults and their blames and their shames, not that one, okay? I hope that answers the question. Maybe you can say something in the chat room or call in and let me know that you got your question answered.
Perfect, perfect. And we do, people are starting to ask questions. We'd love to have you call in. Dr. Judy would love to hear your voice. You don't have to use your real name. You can make one up. But the phone number is 323-524-2599. And we do have another question, if you don't mind me asking.
Sure.
This is from Mamu. Can you become passive aggressive if you have a NPD parent?
If you have an NPD parent, okay, so let's go through it. If you have an NPD parent and they are controlling and you really don't matter, you really don't count, and your words are not going to be taken seriously or acknowledged or valued in any shape or form, that means that you can't talk to them directly. And what is passive aggressive? It's indirect talk. So I give up on you. I can't communicate with you. Therefore, I'll just not do what you tell me to do or disappear and not answer your phone call. Oh, if you're going to control me and I'm going to get punished if I talk back to you, well, then I'll just forget to show up, okay, in some form. And that's passive aggressive. But in the face of the control and the narcissism, it makes sense, doesn't it? Especially if they're your parents, you can't talk back to them. But if you're in a relationship and you find yourself acting that way, that should be a dead-on cue to you that you cannot communicate with this person, that it's not safe to do so. And if you're in a relationship where it's not safe to communicate, something's wrong, okay? Something is threatening. The person doesn't have the ability to enter into a peaceful and healing kind of dialogue that will move the relationship forward. And that's part of what it's like to be in a narcissistic relationship. It doesn't go anywhere. And that's why I call these patterns the 𝗬𝗏𝗏. They just keep spinning over and over and over, and there's no resolution, there's no forwarding the system, and it just, as I'm saying it, doesn't really go anywhere other than you being blamed and they walking away or taking more advantage of you or punishing you for who you're not being, and more of the same. I hope that answers the question.
I'm sure it did. And I just put in a chat room, just give us a call. And Dr. Judy would love to speak with you.
Yeah, so I hope that you guys are getting the idea that it's not about curing the narcissist. You can't cure anybody, let alone, it's hard enough to work on yourself. So it's not about changing the narcissist or you could put boundaries on a narcissist, but that probably will mean that you'll have less and less contact all the way to no contact with them, because really anything that they're doing is not a +1. So let me move through the mind map for a moment and help you understand that in order to be in a narcissistic relationship, you're going to have to expect to be emotionally inflamed a lot. So let's look at panel number 2, which is reactions to the wound. So this narcissist who is wounded will continue to wound you. And so your amygdala, which is your fight and flight and freeze and fawn response, will always be at work. So there won't be peace in the relationship. It will be a reactive relationship, often where you're ducking and you're hiding, or you're justifying and smoothing things over and ignoring, or being passive aggressive because you can't really say anything. And of course, the key thing here is that you're hooked to that person. And so the idea is that you're not going to leave because it's too painful. Remember, you are in a toxic bond. Think about a heroin addiction. It's a toxic bond relationship. You are hooked on heroin. You are hooked on your toxic narcissist, which means that if you try to leave, you will go through withdrawal, okay? And you will go through such a painful period of missing that person that they won't disappear from your mind even a year later, or 5 years later, or 10 years later, or 20 years later, because that piece of you is still being activated, okay? Even though they may not be there, that piece of you of I'm not good enough, I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy, I'm damaged goods, who would want me anyway? Something that you heard possibly from your family of origin and something that was replicated in the narcissistic relationship is still active. So remember, when you're hooked to a narcissist, there is no peace. It's always placating, dodging, shutting down, um, denying for them, being their flying monkey. So if other people talk badly about them, you can have 10 excuses right there ready to go so that they can continue to look good. It's almost like you're working for them, like what are you? You're their PR agent to try to continue to polish them up and make them look good. I mean, it seems like that's going to be a part of your job description if you're in a narcissistically abusive relationship. And so look at panel number 3, and this best describes the toxic bond. So there you are, you're all tied up like a DNA strand that's literally strangling you. You can see the toxicity in the background, all that dark, hazy pollution in the background represents the toxic bond that strangles you, that keeps you stuck. And you're the one who has to keep it going because don't forget, for them, you're a commodity and an option. For you, they are the very breath and the very oxygen, so to speak, that you breathe in. They are your everything, and you're just a thing, okay? They are everything. Remember those words. And you are just a thing, a very replaceable thing, which is why narcissists are able so easily to drop you. Okay, so look at panel number 4. So now, they've had it with you. They're bored. They've moved on. Maybe they were cheating in another relationship, or maybe they just decided that that they're too bored with you, or they want something different, and then they unwind the bond for them, but you're still bonded. Okay, so it's not an equal relationship. They don't feel bonded. They feel as free as a bird, but yet internally you are bonded. So what happens to you? You go into chaos, you spin out, you feel lost and forlorn. You don't know which way is up or down or east or west. And so what do is you beg your way back to panel number 3. Please, 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 won't you take me back? I just want to be bonded to you. I'll bond to you at any cost, and then the price goes up. Okay, I'll take you back, but under these conditions. You pay all the rent and you clean the house and you this, and you're so desperate. Yeah, yeah, I'm so happy that you're back. I'll do anything for you. But do you think that they're invested? Not at all. They're not invested in you. There's no love here. There's just you being a commodity. Okay? You're their thing. And so they take you on another spin, and then pretty soon they get bored again, or they find some new supply or something, and then they do the same thing. They drop you, and now you're back in chaos. And then perhaps they don't come back, and now you're in panel number 5, defense mechanisms. So what's your defense mechanism? Maybe you get really quiet and shut down. Maybe you start eating more or smoking more or drinking more or anything to numb the pain. And this pain numbing business is a kind of a full-time job. So now you're in the shell, a shell, and it's almost like you're in formaldehyde because you're preserving yourself for uh, your wish, your deep, dark, ugly wish, which is that they come back. Please, 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 I'll do anything. So now you're in that dark hellhole, and then maybe one fine day the narcissist is bored and the narcissist texts you and you jump for joy, like, wow, maybe they have had an epiphany. Maybe they want me back and they're serious this time. And so they give you 2, 3 lines of BS that this time they're very, very sorry and they've learned their lesson. And guess what? You're back in panel 3 again. So you buy into the toxic bond. And there you are, but this time it's even worse because you're just so scared. You're just walking on eggshells, and they have you believing that you are the most fortunate person in the world to have them back. And for a moment, like a good heroin addict, you feel the release of the drug and the oxytocin hits you, and it's sort of like a cycle of violence, right? So now you're making love and you're in the love bubble again, and it feels so good. And it feels so good that you think you've gone to heaven and that they will never do this because surely they are feeling the same level of heaven as you are. And they may be feeling the drug effects also, but it's not because of who you are. It's because, again, you're a good commodity and they're able to release these love drugs in your presence. But again, remember, you are replaceable. So then another day goes by, another week, another month, another year, and guess what? Because it was never a healthy bond to begin with, it doesn't last, it's not sustainable, and they drop you again, and your defenses get weaker and weaker, and pretty soon you start breaking down. And what does that mean, breaking down? Well, maybe your health starts going. So now you're in a depression, you're not eating right, you're not sleeping right, you're not being able to earn money the way that you used to, your concentration is off, and you become unrecognizable to others and yourself. And then what makes it worse is other people are saying to you, what's the matter with you? How could you give yourself up to this idiot that didn't even care about you? But not in your world. In your world, you're feeling like you can't live without this other individual. See, it's the oxygen. He or she is your oxygen supply. So this is the way it goes. And unless you unhook from the way you have been being, and unless you heal your childhood wounds, you could expect more of the same, unfortunately. Any questions in the chat room? And is this sounding familiar to anybody?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. And people have been saying it does sound familiar, and have had these similar things that's happened in their life. But I do have a really good question. it says you talk about owning your own stuff.
Yes.
How do I tell the difference between what's my responsibility to work on and what was the narcissistic projection?
What, you mean the narcissistic projection on you? Okay, is that what you mean?
I think that's what they mean, but like how the narcissist always would tell you what you have to work on versus what was your responsibility to work on.
Well, okay, if somebody says, you're a really sloppy person and I can't live with you because you never clean up after yourself and now the bathroom is smelly and the house is dirty, I mean, you always have to look at that and say, is there any truth to that apart from they're trying to use it against you? That's number one. So you always have to examine any form of criticism to see if there's anything in it for you to grow on. And if you're not growing with feedback, even if it's critical feedback, then that's on you, right? If somebody tells you a truth about you and you're not taking it in and you're excusing it, that's about you and your stubbornness or your narcissism, your refusal to own your own stuff. But in a narcissistic relationship, it's always you. So they're not even kind about it. They're not sitting down and saying, look, let's talk about this. I really, really care for you, but there are aspects of you that don't really work for me or get in my way of really fully being present to you, or I'm beginning to feel resentful. Healthy people don't just drop other people, they fight for them. Okay? So, my philosophy's always been don't drop the person, drop the problem. But with the narcissist, you will know that they're just always projecting on you um, issue after issue because you're a commodity. You're not a person. They don't value you. If you're not marching to their tune, if you're not taking their orders, if you're not catering to their life, then they'll find better service elsewhere. It's a job description. So they're not fighting for you, they're fighting for your services. And if your services fail them, then, which is easy, right? We all will fail on some level uh, to service a person. But if they don't fight for the relationship by being dead honest about what's bothering them, then you're not in a relationship with a person who's really fighting for you. I heard a great line. I think it was one of the YouTubes that I was watching, and it went something like, um, "A narcissist is afraid to lose you because of the supply, but a loving person is afraid to hurt you." Okay? And it's a good idea to know the difference. If somebody's afraid to hurt you, that means they value you and they value your heart. If they're afraid to lose you, that's sort of like, oh my God, I lost my wallet, in the wallet were my credit cards and my money and so on. It's a really different consciousness to not want to lose a person who is of emotional and psychological and spiritual value to you rather than a commodity. Any other questions in the chat room?
Yes, there is. Let's see. This one I'm actually curious about because it says, I've heard about trauma bonds, but what's the difference between a trauma bond and just being in love? How can I tell if I'm trauma bonded?
All right, so look at panel number 7, which is my synergy panel. It's the paradigm shift where you have a new way of seeing and a new way of being. And the old way of seeing is through the trauma bond lens. You see the little light in there? In a trauma bond, you're distorted. You don't see straight. All you see is your desire to keep the person at any cost, even if the cost is to yourself. In a love bond, you negotiate, you You team up as a growth partner, you give each other feedback, you shift behaviors for the betterment of the relationship. And the formula is different because in narcissism, 1 + 1 always makes you feel less than. Okay? So you're feeling less than. That's how you know. You may still feel the love because you're trauma bonded, but you always feel scared that the person's going to walk away, or you're scared that they're going to insult you or hurt your feelings, or you're scared that they're going to hurt you on some level. That's the trauma bond, is you're giving up your safety, your security, your mental health in order to keep the bond. A loving relationship is generative, okay? 1 + 1 is greater. So a person comes into your life and makes you a better person, and you're in the person's life to make them a better person. 1 + 1 is greater than 2. Okay? And that's when you know that there's love there, is that there's regard for the person. You're not just using the person as a commodity. You're not being used as a commodity, but there's a genuine care for the well-being of that other human being. That's how you know the difference. And a trauma bond has a huge price tag on it,
Hmm.
and love shouldn't have that kind of price tag on it.
Amen to that.
Yeah, amen to that, right? And again, more and more studies are showing that autoimmune disease, even cancer, and all kinds of diseases form because internally we're not okay. Internally, our mind and our bodies are reacting to this toxicity. And just like food allergies, which I discovered I have this food allergy and my tongue swelled up. I was so surprised
Hmm.
that happened. And, I didn't even know that I was allergic to that. I'm beginning to see people that way too, that if I'm around the quote wrong person, my body takes a hit. I might get a headache, a neck ache, a backache. I might just feel repelled by their presence. On some level, my body keeps the score, as Dr. Bessel van der Kolk says in his book, The Body Keeps the Score. So also love shouldn't be feeling toxic in your body. You shouldn't be having headaches and backaches and TMJ, holding the tension in your jaws every time you're around the person. This should not be happening. Okay? And if it's happening, there's something off in the relationship, and it's not a relationship that's generative. It's not a relationship that's loving. It's some sort of a toxic bond, and it's not love.
Mm.
People mistake it for love, but it's not. Like, oh, I'm so sick. I haven't seen the person for so long. Well, you're sick because you're going through withdrawal. You might as well say, oh, I'm so sick. I haven't had my heroin for so
Hmm.
long, and now I'm so sick. And thank you. We have a call. So, hello. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you, doctor. I'm actually having a very, very similar problem to what you're describing now. I'm 38, and since I've been 18, we're first generation Mexican, and since then, we actually, at 18 years old, up until then, actually, we were renting. My dad's an alcoholic. He's
Hmm.
always been an alcoholic. He drinks every day. He always has.
Okay.
Um, always been very, very aggressive and violent and so forth. So he's kind of kept control over. I'm the oldest, so he's kind of kept control over me as needing to be the second in charge and the one at the helm, even when I was really young, like 10.
Okay.
So now as an adult, we bought a house property actually, and I rent there to help him with the payment.
Mm-hmm.
It's been the situation for 20 years. And as you described, it's been kind of like a capitulation of different goods and bads. We have these curves where we have episodes where everything is great and I feel affection or like he actually cares. And then one
Sure.
thing happens and it just completely discombobulates everything. It could be the smallest thing, like me piling up tools for my job in my own driveway. and he doesn't think that that's clean enough or organized enough, and that will cause him to just go off and start saying that no one helps him, that everyone just takes from him, and he goes into the martyr syndrome really quick. And I kind of, my mom has kind of always stood by him. So now I'm at wit's end to where I need to really, I've realized that recently that I need to leave in order for me to actually heal fully. I feel like when these little issues come up again, it just opens up these wounds again, and I'm kind of tired of it.
Yeah, but it sounds like you and your father have similar wounds in that he feels that he's been taken advantage of. So you're obviously triggering his wounds too. Does that make sense?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I do notice that I do take on a lot of his characteristics, a lot more before when I was younger. Just because I also drank. I also drank when I was younger. I'm a recovering alcoholic. I've been sober for about 15 years now. So thank you. So I think seeing him kind of drink and all that just kind of, it's like, okay, like I'm okay. I'm doing a little bit better. I'm a little more conscious than he is. And I always make up these excuses, you know. But yeah, I noticed that, you know, a little bit every year, I just feel more and more jaded, more and more like him. And it takes a toll on my personal relationships with my fiance. And at this point, I'm sorry.
Oh, you said something, I think you said that it would be easier for you to heal if you weren't in his, living with him. Is that what you said earlier?
Yeah, I feel like it would, but at the same time, I don't know if that would fix the problem really, just because, I mean, I would still be worried about my mom just because she still would be living there. I would kind of just still be thinking about it. So I don't know if that would really help just because I've never really experienced being away from him.
Oh, that's a very good point. So, this is another complication that you're worried about your mom, and as a man, you feel that you've got to kind of like put your body between her body and his body in order to defend him. So you end up being defend her, so that you end up being monkey in the middle, okay? But
Yeah,
remember, that's not your job. She's a grown woman, and if it doesn't work for her, then she needs to say that to her own husband. Okay, and you can't babysit her at the expense of your life so that your father doesn't cause her stress and harm. Make sense?
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I've been hearing it. It just reaffirms that. It's just kind of hard to hear that you're going to do that with your own parents sometimes. And they're
I
happy to
know,
as I'm crying,
and
but
that doesn't mean not visiting them. It's just that, and you don't
right.
have to make any big announcement of I'm leaving because, like I don't think your dad will take that well, all right? If he's truly narcissistic and alcoholic, then he doesn't have the emotional maturity to have this more sophisticated, own your own stuff conversation. But you can just say, Dad, it's time. My fiance and I have decided, and don't give him options. Don't say, what do you think of me leaving? Just like, no, my fiance and I have been looking around for a place, and in September we're going to be renting something. So you're making statements, not asking questions. Make sense?
Yes. Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah,
And if
absolutely. It's just the guilt that kind of gets me.
Right, and you take control because that's part of what's going on. He's been powering and controlling, and that's been part of the problem. And you've been at the effect of the power and control, and then you feel sorry for your mother and you don't want her to go through it. So you stay. But what is narcissism? Is when you put your own needs before the needs of your children. So if your father is putting his alcohol before the needs of his children and family, if he's putting his power and control needs before your own need to separate and individuate and have a good life, it's time for you to have it anyway, in spite of what he wants. Okay? Is that making sense?
Right.
You can't live your life in fear of him or in fear of your mother not getting enough safety, because that's going to be on her to to deal with them and maybe go into counseling, and she might have to make some shifts because in some sense, you know, the family system is more stable, but fake stable, not real stable, because you refuse to pull out. You know, you're offering stability, but is it real stability? I don't think so. It's like, you know,
Right.
right? If you're in the construction business and you put a brick to make sure that part of the house doesn't fall over and then you remove the brick, does that mean the house is in good shape and built well? Certainly not. It's just that, you know, you've been the brick keeping the house in place all these years and you can't be that brick anymore.
Right, right. And my two siblings right after me, and they're females, they actually moved out as soon as they could, basically. So seeing that is kind of, you know, something that I think I should have done. You know, it's just I feel like the whole male macho thing, you know, that my dad taught me was not to do that. You know, not to abandon ship and not to leave my mom, quote unquote. You know, so I think that was the hardest part. But hearing you say all these things, it's like, okay, this is so reaffirming because these are feelings that I felt before, but because I have no one to kind of bounce them off of, it's just kind of been me reading books and doing things like that to kind of raise my own awareness.
Right. And that's a, you know, that's a nice try for tricking you to stay that you know, that you have family responsibility. But what about his family responsibility to show up sober, right? What about his family
Right,
responsibility to make his kids stronger so that they can launch out into the world and carve out their own life? So, you know, it's a lame excuse that you can't leave because of family responsibility. He's basically saying, take the responsibility for me being irresponsible. That's not right.
right, right, right. Yeah, it's so true. It's very true, and it's like a whole team kind of thing that he does. You know, like, oh, if you don't do exactly as I say or do, then I'm just gonna shut you out, not to talk to you for a while. So it's
Oh,
definitely a control mechanism.
and he may do that, and he may do that, but that's no
Hmm.
reason. See, that's what I'm saying. There's where you own your own stuff and you say, I'm not willing to be part of his control, his system of control by doing what he says if it doesn't work for me and it doesn't feel progressive. You can't cave in. See,
Right,
if you're being that H2O, then you're always going to be under the control of his system. So you have to cut loose. You've got to jump ship, so to speak, okay? And say that sink or swim, Dad, I'm not playing anymore. You know, I'm not playing into your deck of cards. You're on your own. That doesn't mean I don't care for you. That doesn't mean I don't love you, but I'm just not playing your game, Mom. That doesn't mean that I won't visit you. If you want to call, I'll call you. You know, you don't have to punish your mother. Uh, However, you can't punish yourself and your fiance and your future life because he needs the power and control and the stability of who you are to him. He has to be his own man now.
it's so true. It's so true, and it's I think that's the part that it's so clear now when it's like, okay, I'm getting to be 40 almost myself. Like, how
Mhm.
long am I gonna live this way? And then he passes away and me not feel anything and still feel empty and still feel all the feelings I feel now. You know, it's not constructive.
And that's what I was saying earlier, that it's not a win situation. It's not a one plus one is greater than, you know, you could spend your whole life or another decade if he keeps treating you like this and you keep living with him, nothing's going to change. You're not going to get better. He's
Right,
not going to get better. The system is going to be the same. So,
right,
in
right,
order
right.
for systems to change, somebody has to pull the plug.
So true. That's so true, doctor. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate this help, and I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna take steps forward. I'm speaking to a lender now just because I knew I had to do it. It's just so reaffirming and so crazy that I found your podcast in the midst of all this drama. But I really appreciate your help, and power to your podcast. Really, you help so many.
You're very welcome, and it's such a pleasure doing this. I love it. After over a decade of doing this, I still love it. So thank you for calling in. I appreciate it, and all the best to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor, and your team. Have a great rest of your week.
Same to you. Yeah, it's not easy pulling out of a system because the system is kind of like steeped in its own squat, and in order to shake it loose, you've got to do something really, really different. And you're going to get pushback. Your dad's not going to like it. Your mom's not going to like it. Anytime you change anything, somebody's going to push back because you've been stabilizing the unstable and you've been feeling the instability within you, but somehow you've been providing some level of stability to the narcissist, which doesn't sound too good, does it? Kind of like, really? At your expense? Well, enough is enough. So please remember that you don't have to go through years of therapy to unravel and unhook yourself from narcissistic abuse. I put together this video that's a kind of a DIY, do it yourself, or if you need a team member to help you, you can have that available to you too. But mainly do it because you don't want to stay steeped in your own squat because it's not going to change over time. You know how they say time heals all wounds? Not really. I think shifts heal wounds, insights heal wounds, shifts in consciousness heal wounds, doing the work heals wounds. But just like watching your watch, and oh, a year went by, 2 years went by, a decade went by, and what did you do during the decade? What did you do? Same old, same old? Or did anything shift in you? So, I'm inviting you to be the cause of better outcomes for your life. And I put together the mind map and videos and therapists who are trained in the system to help you to shift out of your old life because it's costing you. I don't think you realize this. It's costing you emotionally, it's costing you health wise, it's costing you economically, because if you're not well emotionally and physically, then your earning capacity goes down. How do you get up and be successful and be sharp and edgy and creative when you're crying and grieving and being stepped on and abused? It's just not possible. It's a big price tag. Okay, so I've offered you guys a pathway out. Take it and don't allow for yourself to be caught in this. I call it the what the Freud, the spin cycle, where you keep going back and back and back and back. Any other last minute questions in the chat room?
I think that's about it, but that was a great episode. A lot of people tuned in and a lot of people, new people. So thank you, everyone that tuned in for the first time.
Yes, and do check out my website and all the other videos that are up there. It must have hundreds and hundreds of videos of Dr. Judy WTF, and hopefully each one contains a bit of a wisdom message to you guys. And keep learning and don't allow for yourself to think that a toxic bond is love. It's not, it's an addiction. Okay, so hope to see the newcomers again, and maybe you'll get the courage to call in. I appreciate the last caller. Thank you, everyone. Good night.